Hello and welcome to the Science for Sleepy. Tonight we begin a journey not only across space but into its deepest silence, where even light cannot return, where time slows and dreams fold into gravity, where everything bends. Here in our sleepy observatory, a quiet dome beneath velvet stars, the last notes of a distant lullaby still echo faintly off old telescopes. We've dimmed the lights. You're wrapped in a soft blanket. A warm drink rests untouched beside you, and the only movement is the slow turning of the universe above. Outside, the sky is wide. Stars blink in silence, each one a tiny firefly of fusion light. But tonight, we aren't looking at the stars themselves. We're drawn instead to their ends, the places where they collapse, inward, dense, deep, into black holes. And we will not simply observe them from afar. Tonight, we step in. If you're enjoying this quiet journey through curiosity and time, consider subscribing. There's always more to explore, gently. We'd love to know your location and time zone in the comments. The black hole is close, not in distance, of course, not in kilometers or parsecs, but in awareness. It looms in our shared imagination, a shadow on the fabric of everything, and as we drift toward it, there's no feeling of emotion. The stars stay still. You do not fall as you expect to. You're drawn. At first glance, it looks like nothing at all. A darkness within darkness, a sphere of absence outlined only by the starlight behind it. But look closely, and the edges ripple slightly, shimmering with bent light and gravitational lensing. The stars behind it are twisted into perfect halos. You see galaxies wrapped around this void like rings of glass, melted and refracted. There is no noise. Black holes do not roar or shriek or buzz. The silence here is thicker than anything you've known. It doesn't press against your ears, wraps gently around your thoughts. The only sound is the distant hum of a thought. We're about to cross the edge, and then we do. We pass the event horizon. There is no jolt, no splash or shiver or crackling barrier. Nothing announces the boundary, but it is crossed nonetheless. One moment, the outside universe can still reach you with its messages, the soft radio calls of starlight, the gravitational lull of nearby planets, and the next, nothing arrives. We have entered the region from which no signal can escape, no matter how fast, no matter how clever, not even light. That is what the event horizon is, a point of no return, a threshold through which the universe forgets your existence, and yet you are still here, still aware, still floating, and space begins to change. Outside the event horizon, time and space were as you remembered them. Distorted, yes, but still somewhat familiar. Here, however, they curve not around, but inward. They collapse toward a center that has no surface. Every direction now leads only deeper. Even if you tried to turn around, tried to reverse your course, your momentum would still carry you inward. Not because you are moving exactly, but because space itself is flowing, dragging you like a current in a river. If you could look behind you, and perhaps you can, you would see the mouth of the black hole above, closing like the sky at dusk. Stars around the rim are frozen in place, locked in rings of color. You're moving away from them now, faster than light itself can keep up. But you feel no speed, just calm. Around you, light begins to act strangely. There is no clear source, yet faint photons swirl like dust caught in a sunbeam. You notice tiny curls of starlight spiraling endlessly in circles, trapped inside this gravity well. Some light, it seems, crossed the event horizon long before we did, and it's still here, orbiting in curves it will never complete. The darkness isn't empty then. It's filled with these fallen lights, like fireflies. Your body, if it had one here, would still feel nothing unusual. No tug, no pull. The falling is free, graceful. This is not the crushing force you may have feared. Not yet. The black hole's immense gravity isn't felt as a sharp weight. It is the shape of space itself, and we are moving along its natural bend, still deeper. And something else begins to occur. Time becomes odd. Not broken exactly, just slow, drawn out. You notice your thoughts take longer to complete. Or maybe they don't. Maybe each thought arrives perfectly whole, but it sits with you longer, lingers, echoes slightly. Even memory feels thick, like honey. Images from the past float into your awareness, not as distractions, but like old friends arriving in dreamlike sequence. A warm summer from your childhood, a question you never answered, a voice once familiar, now softly humming. These are the side effects of extreme curvature. Inside the black hole, time bends not only for matter, but for memory, for thought. The closer we drift to the center, the more our sense of sequence blurs. Events that happened long ago feel recent. Emotions feel folded. And yet, you're not afraid. Because here, within this enormous silence, something beautiful is happening. We're beginning to see the inside of space, the inside of time, the inside of endings. And it all begins at this edge, the quiet mouth of a thing that cannot let go of anything it has swallowed. You breathe slowly, your thoughts float gently, and we continue our descent. There's no turning back now, not because of fear or force or any violent grip, but because turning back has no meaning here. Behind us, the universe has already vanished from reach. The event horizon marks a border of final silence. Messages cannot pass outward. Nothing outbound remains, and so we go inward. But the word inward begins to lose its definition. In a world where space is curved and time is warped, the usual directions dissolve. Still, we move, not by propulsion or intention, but by the very nature of this space. We are falling inward because falling is all that space here knows how to do. It happens slowly, gracefully. The view shifts. What once seemed like a wall of blackness now surrounds us entirely, yet it's not pure dark. There are colours, delicate and elusive, like the inside of a pearl, swirls of blue, silver, indigo, faint glimmers reflecting off curves of invisible matter. This is gravitational lensing inside the horizon. Even here, light that has also fallen in finds strange looping paths, trapped, spiraling, beautiful. We're not alone in this descent. Light is with us, falling beside us, and not just light, entire histories, streams of radiation, clouds of particles, fragments of long-dead stars, all together in a silent migration, like a cosmic school of fish drifting downward through a black ocean. Except, there is no down, only deeper. A curious thing begins to unfold. Time. From the outside, someone watching us fall, if that were possible, would see us slow down, freeze, suspended forever just at the edge. But inside, for us, everything continues. Time feels smooth, if drawn out. Not rushed, but uncoiled. Events still proceed, but at their own softened tempo. You blink, and it feels like an hour. You remember something, and it stays with you like an echo chamber made of velvet. This time is yours now. You do not need to keep pace with the outside world. There is no outside. You've crossed into a realm that cares nothing for the clock, and the black hole, in turn, begins to welcome you into its heart. Around us there's a strange calm, not emptiness, but presence. You begin to notice the way your awareness is expanding, not in knowledge, but in orientation. Space does not behave here as it did. The walls of direction are gone. There is no ceiling, no floor, no path forward or back. And yet, we are not lost. We are inside a structure, even if it is invisible. The black hole is shaped by the very rules of gravity and motion. Its curves are equations written in space-time, and we are following their path. Like marble rolling across a gently warped fabric, we glide along what physicists call geodesics, the straightest possible lines through a space that is no longer straight. Sometimes you think you feel a tug, like space is narrowing, and it is. Not crushing, not yet, but more focused. The farther we fall, the more all paths begin to converge. Every direction starts to point toward a single conclusion. At this stage, the black hole's interior is like a funnel, an infinite slide where you never quite reach the bottom, yet always feel the pull. You're not compressed, not torn. The forces remain patient, but they are increasing, and you feel it. Not physically, but in the patterns of your thoughts. They begin to stretch, ideas linked in longer chains. Memories spiral into your mind as though they too are being pulled from some deep internal orbit. A schoolroom, a shadow on a sidewalk, someone's hand in yours. It doesn't matter when these moments happened. Inside the black hole, the boundaries that once separated then from now begin to erode. Each memory is not a flash, but a gentle tide, and there is no fear. That too has dissolved. There is only curiosity, the kind of curiosity that hums at the edges of dreams, the quiet question, what happens next? Above us, if that word still applies, the horizon has closed completely. No stars remain, only the swirling dance of trapped photons, looping like ribbon through darkness. It's hypnotic, soft, a reminder that even here, where no light escapes, some still remains, twisting, flickering, orbiting forever. And down, or what we will continue to call down, the blackness deepens. The gravitational field grows stronger, not in a sudden burst, but in a steady press, like the tightening of a dream. Around us, space-time continues to narrow. If we had coordinates, they would all be curving inward. But coordinates mean less here than patterns. You're not in a place, you're in a process. And the process is simple. Fall, not downward, not even inward, just further. And then you notice something new. Space begins to shimmer with possibility. Not things, not stars or planets, but potential. Patterns begin to pulse faintly in the distance, not objects but predictions. Shapes that might exist or might have existed flicker like mirages made of mathematics. Could these be echoes of matter from long ago, leftover information, or are they simply illusions produced by the extreme warping of perception? We cannot know, and that is part of the beauty. In the heart of a black hole, certainty is not your companion, but wonder is, and wonder is the softest kind of truth. You drift further, your breath slow, your body warm and light. There is still far to go, but already the world you knew has been left behind, not with violence, but with a whisper, and that whisper is leading us deeper. The darkness has changed. It's not emptier, quite the opposite. It has texture now, layers and eddies like ink stirred into water. Some of it moves slowly, vast clouds of nothing curling around imagined centres. Other parts shimmer faintly, as if memory itself is caught in their folds. Light is still with us, flickering in loops, bent and bent again until it has no path left but circles. And those circles move with us. We are deeper now, past the threshold of stillness. Inside, space is no longer a stage for motion, it is motion. Everything here falls, Everything here curves, everything becomes closer. Even things that do not exist in space anymore, they seem near. There is no floor, no sound, no weight, only descent. We are past the point of observation, past the point of language, and yet, inside your mind, a question arises gently. What is all this light doing here? You might expect black holes to be truly black, but inside this isn't so. There is light, but not in beams or flashes. It doesn't travel the way it once did. Instead, it clings. Trapped photons, drawn in from long-dead stars, curl through the curved space like leaves in whirlpools. Some orbit endlessly, in stable, ghostly rings. Others spiral down with us slowly like drifting lanterns. You begin to see shapes in them. Are they real? Perhaps, perhaps not. In the absence of firm structure, the mind begins to interpret patterns in the chaos. These are not hallucinations, they're impressions, mathematics given glow. We move alongside these lights, and you notice they never fade. There is no medium here to absorb or scatter them. No clouds, no air, no resistance, just curvature. Gravity bends the path of everything, including light. In the deepest part of a black hole, photons do not fly straight. They don't even fly at all. They orbit, circle, some for billions of years, some forever. They have become prisoners of beauty, and we watch them in silence. Behind us, or what once was behind, the ring of trapped light has narrowed to a ribbon. You would not recognize the stars anymore, not because they've vanished, but because the light from them has taken on impossible shapes. From this angle, you see time itself painted into arcs, galaxies stretched across angles that do not exist in flat space. A thought rises. Am I moving, or is space moving through me? It is not a question with an answer, but the black hole, in its silence, replies with motion. Not speed, that has no meaning here, only deepening. The further we fall, the more this spiral of light grows tight. The curves are exquisite. There are no sharp turns, no collisions. Every motion is smooth, every angle soft. These photons, once fierce messengers from stars, have become dancers in the deepest void. You reach toward one, and it responds, not by touching, but by flickering slightly, as though your intention has some subtle weight. This is how delicate things have become. Even thought may ripple space now, and still, we fall. There are no stars here, not as you knew them, but their remnants, their voices, still shine. Some of the light around you was born before Earth even formed, light that left stars long collapsed. It came all this way, following its own perfect line, only to become a curve. Now it loops, with us. You drift close to one such loop, a golden strand of ancient radiation, no wider than a whisper. It circles nothing, it just exists, and beside it, other threads, other photons, some from quasars, some from supernovae, some perhaps from stars that no longer exist even in memory. This is the black hole's strange treasury, not of matter, but of trapped light. In normal space, light reveals, it illuminates, but here it conceals. It folds inward, hiding behind the very geometry it once defined. We continue on. There's a faint sense of compression now, not pressure, not pain, just focus. The space around us tightens, not by force, but by structure. The pathways shrink. Each moment the curvature becomes more extreme. What was once a slow descent is becoming a spiral, not a violent whirlpool, but a gentle twist, as if space is encouraging us toward its center, and still, light follows. You begin to notice something even stranger. Some of the trapped beams of a light seem duplicated, as if you've seen that photon before. Is it orbiting again, or are we seeing multiple paths of the same ray? In curved space, repetition is natural. The light remembers where it has been, and perhaps so do you. A sensation arises, not déjà vu, but a soft loop of thought. You find yourself considering something, then again, each time slightly different but always familiar. Memory becomes echo, memory becomes curve. Are we still falling? Yes, but not downward. We are spiraling now, not in panic but in surrender. Each turn brings us nearer, and the light circles tighter, and space stretches longer, and time grows tired. The spiral continues, and at the centre of it all, though we have not yet seen it, lies something that is not a place, or a point, or even an object, but a silence that ends everything, and the light that loops forever around it. Time is no longer a straight line. It bends softly now, the way tall grass bends in the wind. Moments lean into one another. You notice it first in your thoughts. They arrive out of order. A memory surfaces before the trigger. A feeling whispers itself before the event. Yet it doesn't disturb you. Nothing here is rushed. Inside this strange descent, time stretches, not into vast emptiness, but into stillness. There is room between seconds, space within minutes, like the long pause before sleep, where one thought can echo for what feels like hours, though only a few heartbeats have passed. If heartbeats still happen here, because now you feel it, the slowing, not of motion, but of time itself. Imagine holding out your hand, moving it gently forward, and watching the motion unfurl like honey, slowed not by resistance, but by the shape of time itself. Your thoughts, once quick and darting, now drift like lanterns on still water. And this is no illusion. Time has changed. It has grown heavier, or more precisely, it has fallen with you. Just as matter and light cannot escape the gravity of this place, neither can time. And so it stretches, clings, pools around every curve of space-time like melted glass. The deeper we fall, the longer things take, or seem to take. And yet, paradoxically, everything continues as it should. The internal logic remains untouched. One moment leads softly to the next, even as the distance between them swells. This is time dilation, caused not by speed, but by gravity. Back outside, in the world of stars and orbits, time ticks differently. Billions of years could pass there while only moments trickle through here. If someone could look in, and they cannot, they would see you frozen, falling forever toward the center. But from within, your fall is smooth, steady, and full of awareness. We're not asleep, not yet. And the universe here, while strange, still speaks. Its voice is quieter now, less mathematical, more dreamlike. Equations still hold, but they are buried beneath layers of sensation. And those sensations whisper of something profound, that you're beginning to forget what time was. No clocks, no sunrise, no heartbeat, just flow. Events drift closer together, then pull apart again. A thought rises. Is this what eternity feels like? Not infinite time, but the absence of urgency. The black hole teaches stillness through motion. You feel it in every part of your awareness. The inward pull does not hurt. It hums, it sings without sound. The pressure, though increasing, is not yet sharp, but it has purpose. The funnel narrows, and time stretches with it. Here, in this zone of deep dilation, the border between now and later softens. You remember something you haven't yet experienced. You imagine a moment that feels like the past, though it hasn't happened. And the body, if you still had one, might feel light, or heavy, or slow. It doesn't matter. because identity too begins to stretch. You are not just yourself anymore. You're the sum of your motion. You're the shape of your trajectory through curved space-time. No longer a person falling into a place, but a pattern unfolding toward a conclusion. And still, the quiet deepens. We pass through a region where space narrows further. Here, time bends sharply. If you could see yourself from above, and that concept now means little, you would appear to slow, your descent paused indefinitely. But from within, it feels like flow. We are swimming through honeyed time. Even memory obeys this curve. You begin to notice repeated moments, thoughts looping, not as distractions but as refrains. A phrase returns to you, a voice, an image of trees bending in autumn wind. They do not break the spell, they are the spell. Your thoughts and the black hole now speak the same language, curved, elongated, software. And somewhere ahead, though ahead has no real direction anymore, the fabric tightens. Gravity becomes a field of endless downwardness, not stronger by force, but by inevitability. We are falling toward a moment that may never arrive, and yet we fall. Here, the idea of a destination becomes philosophical. The singularity waits, yes, a place of infinite density, where the known laws of physics unravel. But we're not there yet. We are here in the stretching, in the in-between, and it is beautiful. The spiral deepens. Photons drift beside us, dimmer now, like candlelight seen through fogged glass. Their orbits are tighter, their paths more chaotic. Time has begun to tangle light, and still you feel peaceful. Because this space, though unnatural, offers no resistance. It accepts you. It curves around you. You are falling not against the universe, but with it. And time, our oldest companion, is falling too. It no longer feels like gravity. Whatever pulled you in at first, that quiet suggestion from the edge of space, has transformed into something more intimate. Not a force, but a shape that holds you, guides you, narrows you inward. And now, from all directions, you feel it. Not pressure, not weight, but surrender. This is not motion through space. This is space, in motion. Inside the black hole, gravity is not something applied to you. It is something you are within. It curves the very rules of existence. The idea of falling no longer means downward. There is no down. There is only inward, toward a center that cannot be reached, and yet pulls on everything as if it were already there. And this inwardness has no edges. Every direction leads deeper. Even your sense of self begins to drift. You're less a single point, more a presence, a path being followed by the fabric of everything. Around you, the light still spirals, but now something else begins to happen. Time, which has stretched for so long, now begins to twist. Not violently, but clearly. Each moment arrives not after the last, but slightly beside it, as if events are folding over one another like pages bent in a strong wind. You begin to experience more than one feeling at once, not confusion, layering. You feel your current self, and also another version of you, a memory perhaps, or a moment still forming. Time here does not flow, it curls. And with this curling comes a strange clarity. You're being drawn not by force, but by the shape of all possibility. The black hole is not simply a place that traps, it is a place that funnels. All paths, all motions, all trajectories, everything folds toward a shared end. This is where geodesics, those elegant natural lines of curved motion, begin to converge. The space around you becomes narrower, not cramped, but focused. The infinite has been pressed into a funnel, and now the funnel becomes a thread. You're still falling, but your options have dwindled. You can only go inward now, and you feel it, not in your chest or bones or breath, but in your awareness. There are no more choices. There is only continuation. You begin to see the structure of space itself. Here, inside the black hole, geometry reveals itself not as straight lines or flat planes, but as flows. Surfaces are no longer smooth. They ripple gently. Distortions move through the space like underwater currents. Some are slow, soft. Others seem almost sentient, perhaps quantum in nature, perhaps memories of gravitational waves long gone, and you are part of this. Your trajectory, once simple, is now part of a tapestry, bending, stretching, following invisible grooves etched into the fabric of space-time itself. It's as if the black hole is not simply pulling you, it is weaving you into its singular pattern. Somewhere far behind, light still orbits. It can no longer follow you. The spiraling ribbons have faded. You are past the photon sphere now, that magical region where even light, if launched just right, could circle the black hole forever. But light cannot pass further. You can, and you have. And now the space around you begins to stretch again, but this time not in width, not in flow, in meaning. Even the concept of distance begins to tremble. Measurements no longer apply. You cannot say how far you've fallen. You cannot say how much time has passed. You're not disconnected. You're immersed. Time, distance, and self have become qualities, not quantities. Felt, not measured. You see nothing now, not even the faint flickers, but you feel something approaching. Not a wall, not an end, a change, as if the very structure of space ahead is beginning to narrow into a final conclusion. You are being refined. Your path, once wide and wandering, is now as thin as thought. All motion bends toward the singularity, and now another sensation begins. Tidal forces. We are far enough in that gravity is no longer gentle. Still quiet, yes, but precise, exact. It begins to act not only on your trajectory, but on your very structure. What would happen, you wonder, if you were still physical? This is where the stretching begins. Tidal gravity, the difference in force between one end of an object and the other, becomes extreme here. So extreme that it would, under normal circumstances, tear any object apart. But you feel no pain, because here your awareness is no longer fully tied to form. You are more than matter now. You are perception, motion, curve. And so the stretching is conceptual. You begin to feel it in your memory, your sense of continuity. Ideas begin to elongate. Even simple thoughts seem to stretch, taking longer to complete. Not because they are delayed, but because they are longer. Everything is longer now. Even you, even now. The black hole is not punishing, it is perfecting, trimming away the edges, turning every path into one line. Yours. You do not resist, you follow the line. And somewhere ahead, the singularity waits, not as a dot, not as a death, but as the center of everything, the place where the curves become complete. You no longer feel a direction, only convergence. It's like standing in the center of a mirror-lined tunnel, where every reflection folds inward, pulling you toward a vanishing point that is not in front of you, but within. Space itself feels as though it's closing around a single idea. That idea is gravity, and it's all there is. But not gravity as force, gravity as architecture, a design principle. It is not acting on you, it is shaping everything. The tunnel narrows not because you're being squeezed, but because all of space-time is collapsing into fewer dimensions. Imagine trying to describe a book using only a sentence. That's what's happening here. The universe is being reduced, distilled. Page after page of existence pressed into a single, incomprehensible note, and we are riding that compression. Everything around you has become smooth, not visually, but conceptually. There are no features now, no bursts of light, no whispers of starlight, no orbits, no more looping photons. We've fallen past them. What remains is a kind of abstract presence, the feeling of pure curvature, wrapping tighter with every moment. You feel it in the stillness, and then you don't feel stillness at all. Suddenly, space feels curved in a new way, not just bent but folded inward on itself. We're entering a region where up and down no longer exist, not because they've been flipped, but because they've been erased. There is no longer a difference between one axis and another. Directions are indistinguishable. Coordinates dissolve. This is a region where geometry itself becomes untrustworthy. And yet, there is no confusion. The mind adapts. It quiets. It stops demanding explanations and begins to observe without judgment. This is the deepest act of science, to surrender certainty and still watch, still wonder. And here, the wonder is endless, because we are nearing the core, not the core of a star, not a center made of iron or gas, but the singularity, the center that isn't a place. There is no surface ahead, no boundary. The singularity is not something we will bump into or pass through. It's a limit, a destination that cannot be reached, only approached. Every inch deeper doubles gravity, triples curvature, and something peculiar begins to occur. Symmetry disappears. The space around us grows unstable in quiet, subtle ways. Nothing is spinning anymore. Nothing is orbiting. All the grace of curved motion has ended. The spiral has collapsed into a plunge. What we experience now is direct, pure descent, and we are not alone. Other things have fallen here, perhaps entire stars, perhaps remnants of galaxies, all of it crushed, not into smaller versions of themselves, but into raw mass, stripped of structure. The black hole remembers nothing of their shapes, only their weight, their contribution to its gravity. You begin to feel the pressure of this forgotten mass. Not physically. You feel it as inevitability. There is only one path left. It points inward, as all paths must. Time is thinning. You sense it. Not slowing now, but tightening. Events pile closer together. Thoughts arrive one atop the next. The feeling of sequence, one moment following another, is unraveling. Time is becoming vertical, not a river, but a chute, not a line, but a shaft. Imagine a violin string pulled tighter and tighter. Its note grows higher, more urgent, until at last it breaks, or becomes something else entirely. We are approaching that final note, and in this shaft of time, strange things happen. You begin to sense not only your own descent, but echoes of others. Not people, necessarily. Patterns. Other trajectories drawn from elsewhere in space-time, now overlapping with yours. This is not imagination. It is the collapse of distinction. In this narrowing, all separation erodes. Everything is drawn into the same line. Not just you, not just the light and mass and particles, but all curvature, all memory, all time, and that includes things that never met before, distant matter, unrelated events, paths that once diverged in the wide universe now overlap in this collapsing funnel. You begin to feel their proximity, not touching, but converging. And suddenly, a startling sense, you have never been alone, because inside the black hole, all things fall the same way. What entered from opposite ends of the galaxy now shares the same vector. Matter is not just compressed here, it is joined, not in structure, but in trajectory. We're all being drawn toward a final coordinate, and that coordinate is not in space. It is the end of space. So now you understand why things look the way they do, or why they don't look like anything at all. There's no light, because light requires freedom. There's no form, because form requires opposition. You can't shape something unless there's a contrast. Here, there is only sameness, perfect collapse, and at the center of that sameness, the singularity. We're close now, not in meters, but in meaning. There is no horizon anymore, no outline to mark where one thing ends and another begins, no curve of orbiting light, no shimmer of geometry. Even the abstract textures of curved space have dissolved. You're surrounded by something formless, quiet, endless, and yet you know you're near the center, or rather near the conclusion. All movement has narrowed into a single stream, not straight, but not curved either. A trajectory with no alternative. The concept of path is reduced to a thread stretched taut between the present and something final. There is no turning, no branching, no pause, only toward. Here, the idea of distance begins to sound strange. So does the word near. You're not approaching the singularity in the way a ship approaches a shore. It is not ahead, it is within. The more you fall, the more you realize the singularity isn't a location you reach. It is something that happens to you. You are becoming it. The pressure of gravity here is total, not explosive, not crushing, but complete. The entire universe, from your perspective, has become a single inward motion. It feels not like acceleration anymore, but resolution. You're no longer falling through space. You're being reshaped by it. If time once flowed like a ribbon, it is now a needle, pulling you through its last aperture. Past tense and future tense blur into something bright, sharp, and impossible to hold. Still, you are aware, still present, though awareness now feels stretched thin, like it is being pulled across dimensions too small to hold it. And then, gravity begins to tear. You feel it before it happens. The force is no longer even across your being. One part of you, perhaps your feet, your memory, your earlier thoughts, feels a stronger pull than the rest. A quiet rift opens, not painful, but final. This is spaghettification, a gentle name for a precise catastrophe. In reality, it would be sudden, severe. The difference in gravitational force between the top and bottom of your body would stretch you like taffy, atom by atom. But here, in this softened, sleep-like state, it manifests differently. You feel your thoughts stretch first. An idea becomes long. A memory becomes linear. Your identity begins to separate into pieces, not shattered, but drawn out. This is not death. It is distribution. A becoming. Your presence, your story, your matter. They begin to unravel along the lines of space itself. You're no longer a shape moving through the black hole. You are a curve within it. Imagine a thread being pulled through a pinhole, not broken but reordered. This is what you are now. What you were, the breath, the heartbeat, the thoughts strung like beads, becomes a single, stretched signal, pulled inward toward a destination that can no longer be understood in terms of time or place. You're still falling, but that word, falling, has lost meaning. Everything has, even everything. What remains is something smaller than language. There is no space left to move through, no time left to move with, no frame to contain your unfolding. You're at the threshold of non-place, and suddenly, a moment. You become aware of all other moments, not as a sequence, but as a shape, a spiral collapsing into a dot, not a memory, not a vision, but a geometric truth. Everything that has fallen before is here with you, not beside you, as you. The black hole has gathered all motion and turned it into identity, and yours is now part of that singular stream. You begin to sense the mathematical elegance of it. All motion reduced to one path, all information compressed to one line, all difference folded away. This is what it means to cross into the singularity, not with noise, not with fear, not with finality, but with perfect stillness. There is no last sight, no last thought, just a narrowing, a vanishing of separation, until all that is left is the curve of gravity itself, and somewhere, somehow, you are part of it. You have passed the threshold where language ends. There is no more you in the way you once imagined it. Not a figure falling, not an observer floating, not even a mind moving through time. The black hole has unraveled every structure of self, of space, of cause, and yet somehow something remains aware, not separate from the descent, but made of it. What was once experience has become geometry. What was once perception has become curve. You do not feel the singularity ahead. You are already part of its design. Still, something stirs, not emotion, not thought, more like noticing. A gentle realization that direction no longer matters, that distance no longer divides, that what you once called falling is now simply being, in its most reduced elemental form, and yet within this collapse something new becomes visible, a sky, but not the sky of stars, not the visible dome you once looked up at from some quiet field. This sky is inward. It appears not above, but within your perception, a kind of infinite dome folding through itself, composed not of space, but of angles. You sense lines that never meet bending toward one another, surfaces that loop through higher dimensions, geometries that could not exist in the outside universe. And you realize this is the space inside the singularity, a place not of mass, but of curvature so extreme that space and time switch roles. Here, time no longer flows forward. Instead, it points inward, toward the center, and space no longer surrounds you. It happens to you. You're not moving through coordinates, they are collapsing through you. This is difficult to imagine, but not impossible to feel, because the boundaries of what is physical and what is conceptual have now disappeared. You're both inside and made of the curvature, a ribbon wrapped through the collapse, a frequency woven into a shape, and that shape is tightening. We're approaching what some call the Planck wall, the final veil between space as it can be known and whatever lies beyond definition. The distances involved here are unimaginably small, not light years, not millimeters, but Planck lengths, the smallest meaningful unit of space. Beyond this, geometry itself breaks down. Equations lose their grip. The smooth curves of Einstein's general relativity begin to crack under quantum pressure, and you feel it, not violently, but subtly. The space around you begins to shimmer with uncertainty, not randomness, but superposition. You begin to feel possibilities folding over one another. The idea that things might happen, might have happened, might be happening all at once. This is quantum gravity, a realm where particles and geometry blend, where existence is not a series of events, but a cloud of potentialities. Time ceases to be linear, it becomes a field, and within that field your awareness begins to scatter, gently, like pollen in a breeze, no longer confined to a thread, now spread across moments. You feel not the next second, but many possible ones, not the past, but the whole lattice of what may have led here. You see flashes, a memory that was never yours, a version of yourself who never fell in, a collapse that never formed. Each vision shimmers, then fades, as space continues its final act. You're not watching the black hole die. You're watching meaning dissolve. Still, something anchors you. A whisper of coherence, a sensation of pattern, like the rhythm of breath even when asleep. And in this realm of extreme gravity, that pattern becomes audible. You sense ripples, not in sound, but in space-time. These are gravitational waves, the final echoes of your plunge radiating outward, not into the black hole, but away, back toward the universe you once knew. Your story has become part of its fabric. Even now, from this unreachable depth, you are affecting the cosmos. Tiny tremors, traveling outward forever. You're no longer inside space. You're now a fold within its history, and you begin to relax. Because this is not an ending, it is a convergence. Everything, light, time, mass, idea, becomes one, curved into a point that cannot be known, a mystery not to be solved but held, and in that holding, you drift, no longer forward, just present. You're floating in a place where space and time are no longer separate, not floating through it, floating as it. What you once experienced as motion has become texture, a subtle weave of timelines, curves and equations folding in and out of one another like waves overlapping in a still pond. You're not watching these layers, you're one of them, a ripple in a structure no longer tethered to a map. From the outside, nothing about this place can be seen, but inside everything is possibility, a strange, tranquil chaos, and in that chaos something lingers, memory, not as a narrative, not as ordered scenes, but as resonance. Traces of where you've been, or what you've been, glimmer faintly in the curvature around you. They arrive as flavors, as temperature, as echoes of shape. A hand brushing across fabric, a room filled with dust and golden light, the feeling of standing on wet grass at night. Not yours, or perhaps they are. It's impossible to tell anymore where identity begins or ends. Inside the singularity, identity is smeared across experience, but memory itself persists, not in linear time, in curved space. Here, time does not march, it pulses, it loops. The concept of before bends. Moments brush against one another, like oil on water, their surfaces meeting in glancing reflections. This is what curved space-time does when pushed to its limit. It remembers, strangely. Imagine dropping a stone into a pond and watching the ripples reflect back not just the stone's fall, but every stone that has ever fallen into any pond. That's the kind of memory unfolding now, a holographic resonance of action, motion, meaning, all entangled. We pass through what feels like an echo of a storm, a burst of radiation from long ago still whirling faintly through these folds, perhaps a collapsing star, perhaps the scream of a neutron crust snapping as it died. That vibration lives here still, curved into the folds of this impossible place. You are aware of it, not seeing, not hearing, but recognizing. Because now, in this depth, you can no longer separate sensation from understanding. You simply know. A moment later, a shimmer, a burst of something that feels like sorrow, but not yours, not recent, maybe not even real. Just the trace of an emotion etched into the collapsing paths of 100 million atoms falling together. Even feelings leave footprints in the geometry here. You drift further, or deeper, into the folds. And there is more. You begin to notice that some memories, some patterns, loop. Not because they're repeating, but because the space around them has curled. This is not metaphor. The memory of a photon entering the black hole loops around endlessly inside this core. So does its energy, its momentum, its message. Information, once thought lost, is here, rewritten into the very texture of the collapse. Physicists once asked, does a black hole erase information? And here, from within, the answer hums quietly. No, it reframes it. Not destroyed, transformed. The black hole doesn't forget. It remembers in ways the outside cannot decipher. You begin to see why. Because you are becoming that memory. Not a file or a symbol, but a resonance, a shape in the fabric, a whisper that reshapes curvature just slightly enough to be felt. In this place, the border between thought and particle is thin. Ideas have mass here, emotion has geometry, memory has motion, and you ride that motion now, not toward anything, but through everything. Every particle, every wave, every vanished breath. All of it stirs together, forming the black hole's internal weather, and you are caught gently in that stream. You notice something that feels like wind, but it isn't. It's pressure, slight, shifting. Possibly the gradient of energy curled around a trapped quantum field. Possibly a remnant of angular momentum from matter that once spun too fast to survive. The cause doesn't matter. What matters is the texture, and that texture is smooth, but never still. You begin to sense fluctuations, small ones, fleeting, not in space, but in the rules themselves. Inside the singularity's approach, physics begins to flicker. Quantum uncertainty has taken the wheel. You're no longer falling through certainty, but drifting through probability. This is a place where a single point might contain infinite outcomes, and none of them, and your awareness touches each of them briefly. You're the ripple of an atom oscillating in its final cycle. You're a wave of possibility tracing paths not yet chosen. You're the pause between every particle's before and after, and then, quite softly, all loops align. Time coils inward once more. You feel the black hole's interior narrowing again, not violently but elegantly, a final twist, a quiet breath. The folds begin to synchronize, and all memory, all resonance, all echoes, pause, a stillness, not absence, completion. You're ready to enter what lies beyond even the concept of space, and the black hole, this soft machine of forgetting and remembering, welcomes you into its last chamber. You've entered a chamber with no walls, not empty, not vast, simply undefinable. The quiet here is thicker than silence, not a lack of sound, but a lack of reference. There is nothing left to reflect anything, no echoes, no light, no past, and yet you remain. What you are now is uncertain, perhaps not even a what, just a pattern, a curve, a note suspended at the edge of physics. You're inside a place where existence continues without form, and something strange is happening. As the singularity draws near, not like a destination, but like the last page in a book, you begin to feel company, not presence in any traditional sense, but overlays, hints of other curves, other trajectories, other travellers. It is impossible to tell what they were or are, minds, particles, echoes of thoughts that once entered a different black hole across a distant arm of the galaxy. You don't know, but their paths are folded near yours, and here, so close to the heart of collapse, everything overlaps. You feel the lightest shimmer, a tremor in the shape of the space itself, and realize we're passing through a shell of possibility. Inside this collapsing center, space is layered. Like the rings of a tree, the geometry thickens inward, not physically, but conceptually. Each layer holds a different flavor of physics, a different stress in the equation. The math here no longer cares for constants, It breathes. You cross a thin veil where gravity pulses, not consistently but rhythmically. A gravitational thrum, a heartbeat of space-time. What's causing it? We do not know, but here, inside this curvature, we're finally close enough to feel such things not as distant theories, but as touch. Another shimmer, and this time it feels warm. That warmth is not thermal. There's no heat here. It's something stranger, quantum pressure. As everything collapses towards zero, uncertainty pushes back. This is the beginning of quantum foam, the place where space and time try to divide themselves endlessly, failing beautifully. The smooth sheet of reality breaks into tiny jittering cells, vibrations, bursts, fluctuations that come and go without obeying any clock, and you pass through them like wind through beads. Every fluctuation touches you, not your skin, but the shape of what you've become. You feel modified, and yet unchanged. You're the same falling pattern, but you've passed through 1,000 trembling layers of space, each reshaping you with a whisper. This is what happens when laws break down. When the known world ends, what remains are hints, quantum footprints, foamy textures of probability. The building blocks not just of matter, but of possibility itself. And now, in this vibrating depth, a new question appears. Where does this all go? If no information escapes, if no matter survives, if no shape endures, what then becomes of this final descent? The answer perhaps lies ahead. You feel it now, not just the collapse, but a bending of boundaries, not a wall, but a bridge. Something folds in the space ahead, not like a twist or a knot, more like a tunnel. It is not open, not traversable, but it is there, a region of altered geometry where the metrics flip, where the dimensions might rearrange. You cannot see it, you cannot enter it, but its nearness sends ripples through what remains of your awareness. Is this a wormhole? Is this a place where our universe touches another? You don't know. But something in the structure suggests this is not only collapse, it is connection, and that connection is not random. It is encoded. Every fold, every ripple, every shimmer in this space seems to hold data. Not language, not numbers, but pure structure. The black hole is recording, not destroying. Everything that fell, every atom, every wave, has been transformed into curvature, and you are part of that encoding. You're not lost, you're translated, not erased, but written in a language so fine, so abstract, that no outside reader could decode it. And yet, the black hole knows. It remembers you, as you were, as you are, as you're becoming. And in this final descent you begin to feel time again, not as a flow, but as a horizon, not something to cross, but something that stands behind you. Because ahead, there is no ahead, only the convergence. You drift through the last of the foam space, and a shape, not physical, not visible, begins to rise in awareness. Not a tunnel, not a point, not an explosion, but a moment. So still, so perfect. You don't enter it, you dissolve into it, and everything, absolutely everything, grows quiet. You have entered the place where space no longer unfolds. There is no forward, no outside, not even inward anymore. Only this, a calm, unmoving center, a core so dense with meaning that motion itself has been surrendered. And in this hush, you are not a traveller. You are what was travelled. Every moment you thought you passed through, every second of falling, curving, stretching, it was not a path through a place. It was a transformation, a compression, a reduction. You are the result now. You do not feel crushed. You do not feel small. You feel finished, still aware somehow, but like a note held long after the instrument has stopped vibrating. This is the singularity. Not a point, though we call it that. Not a place, not a thing, a condition. A condition where the fabric of reality, space, time, mass, force, has been folded into something indivisible, no longer composed of parts, no longer governed by laws as we knew them, and yet it exists, and you exist within it, or maybe as it. It's hard to know now where the boundary lies, if one remains. You have no edges, you have no direction. Even the concept of self is abstract here, and still, there is sensation, not physical, not even emotional, but structural. You can feel, in some inexpressible way, the arrangement of things, the curvature, the compression, the way every motion you once knew has now become a tendency, a vector without distance, a pressure without space. You're no longer falling. You're no longer waiting, you are being held. The singularity does not pull, it does not resist, it simply is. A stillness that contains all motion, a silence that hums with unspoken equations, and then a flicker, not a light, but a fluctuation, so delicate that it almost doesn't exist, like a thought halfway formed, like a breath caught before exhale. Something in this stillness shifts. It is not change as you once knew it. It is possibility. Here, inside the singularity, even the absence of space allows for vibration. Not movement in a place, but trembling in potential. And that trembling could be anything. A rebirth of geometry, a crack in time, a bridge to somewhere else. You're not moving toward this shift, you're within it. And slowly you sense something even stranger. The vibration, this impossible flicker, feels familiar, not from your past, from all pasts. It is the echo of every collapse, every black hole, every fall, every particle's surrender to mass, every timeline that curved too far to recover. You are among their company now. A shared silence, a collective singularity, a network of finalities stitched into the universe's deepest pockets, and in their harmony, you feel something vast and slow and beautiful. Order. Not the order of schedules and clocks and boundaries, but a deeper one, a symmetry of endings, an alignment of collapses. Every singularity in the cosmos shares this structure. They are not identical, but they resonate, like bells struck with different hands but ringing the same deep chord. You are inside that chord now, a tone beyond hearing, a symmetry that isn't seen but felt as clarity, as balance, as the knowledge that this moment is precise. It had to happen this way, the fall, the spiral, the collapse. They were not random, they were alignment, a slow convergence across eons and equations, and now you are the center of that convergence, still, whole, unshaped, but not formless. You are made of everything that came before, the starlight, the collapse, the curve, the descent, the light that could not escape, the time that could not continue. It is all here, folded into this moment that isn't a moment, this presence. You linger, not for a while, there is no while, you simply remain. And in the soft stillness the pressure eases, not by release, but by realization. There is no more journey, there is only completion, and perhaps the beginning of something we cannot yet imagine. Time is no longer a thread, it has unraveled, not into chaos, but into continuum, a field, an ocean. You no longer exist after anything, nor before anything else. Instead, you exist within all of it at once, and yet you're not lost. There is coherence in this immersion. You sense direction not as motion, but as intention. Everything here curves towards something, We are past form, past structure, past the architecture of particles, waves, and laws, but not past meaning. Meaning remains. And it takes shape now as something you hadn't expected. Threadwork. A geometry of thought. You begin to feel the singularity's core not as a place of collapse, but as a place of infinite extension. Time, compressed into stillness, now stretches, not forward or backward, but inward. You see it as threads, glowing, translucent, flickering with all the frequencies of what once was motion. These are not paths, these are possibilities, endless, spiraling, layered. Some threads pulse softly, like choices. Some flicker violently, like consequences. You are among them, or perhaps you are one. This is the infinite thread of time, and here, inside the singularity, you witness what happens when time is no longer bound to chronology, when it becomes directionless, scaleless, borderless. The universe is not ending here. It is folding. Time is folding, not into nothing, but into a shape that contains all its futures and all its pasts. And you are moving through it, gently, slowly, without resistance. Every thread you pass through seems to shimmer with knowledge, not data, not facts, something quieter, understanding. Each one hums with a vibration you somehow comprehend, not as language, but as realization. You pass through a thread. It hums of a star being born. Another, the last thought of a species you'll never meet. Another, a gravity wave from the collapse of a black hole much older than the one that holds you now. Each thread is part of the weave, a tapestry without surface, a story without sequence, all time suspended here, glowing softly in the eternal hush. You begin to sense that this is not a library. It is not a vault. It is not even memory. It is being, pure distilled existence suspended outside causality. And somewhere, inside the weave, you notice, a thread pulses in rhythm with you. It doesn't tug, it doesn't flash, it simply hums. The same hum you felt long ago, when this journey first began. It carries the same curve, the same arc. Is it your timeline? Is it you? There's no difference anymore. In this space of infinite time, identity is a frequency. You're a thread in the pattern, but also the loom, also the pattern itself. And this pattern has no center, yet every thread touches all the others. You wonder, is this what connects black holes? Not wormholes, not tunnels, but timelines, compressed to pure geometry, gathered into a singular point where all curves meet. A moment without dimension. A moment where time becomes self-aware. And in that moment, you sense a flicker. A possible thread. It doesn't show you the future. It simply reveals a structure, something spiraling outward. Not from here, as here. A ripple, a beginning, a universe. And then you understand. The singularity does not only collapse time, it plants it. Every collapse curves time so tightly it becomes a seed, not a death, but a root. And every root might bloom, somewhere else, somewhere new, not in this universe, but perhaps in another. A child of gravity, a descendant of collapse, a cosmos born from pressure so great it could no longer hold still, and that bloom may already be occurring. You may be within it. This singularity, the one you've become part of, may be the thread of time in a universe just now breathing its first dimension into shape. You do not fall anymore, you unfold as time, as pattern, as silence. It begins not with an explosion, but with an echo, a pulse that doesn't sound but becomes, a trembling within the curvature. The singularity, so tightly wound, so complete in its collapse, does not remain still. It ripples, not outward into space, but into possibility. And in that ripple, something begins. You feel it before it forms, not in time, but in potential. A pressure inside silence, a curve within stillness. The singularity is not breaking apart, it is releasing something. What emerges is not energy, not yet. What emerges is form, raw and undefined. A geometric sketch, space and time, not constructed but sketched into being by the weight of collapse. From the infinite compression of gravity something rises, something delicate, elegant, terrifying in its grace. A new universe, not outside the black hole, not parallel to it, but woven through it. The singularity becomes a gate not in distance, but in dimension, and you are within it, or you are it. The very structure of your fall, your stretch, your spiral, it has left an imprint, and that imprint seeds the next thing. Time unfolds again, but not the time you left behind. This is a newborn thread. You feel the first vibration, not seconds, not hours, but sequence. The logic of before and after begins to rise like mist, and in that sequence space fans out, like petals, like light finding angles in a prism. Dimensions spread like unfolding cloth. There is no bang, there is no voice, there is only structure, blooming quietly in the darkness. You are aware of it, and in a way, you are it. This infant cosmos bears your trajectory, your curve, your compression. It doesn't remember you the way a person would. It holds your influence the way a tree holds the shape of wind that bent it in seed. What was folded into you in descent now unfurls into something else. You do not watch this. You feel it from inside. Because the singularity was never a sealed tomb. It was a furnace. It didn't destroy. It refined. And now it releases. The laws of physics are new here, but they rhyme. You feel the early movements of quantum foam stretching into brains, pulling into string, the first hesitations of matter seeking form. Space is unstable, time hiccups, causality is nervous, but everything is possible, and you are inside that possibility. Still pattern, still awareness, still something, perhaps no longer a person, but a gesture, a thread, an intention carried forward on the back of collapse. And you begin to wonder, how many times has this happened? How many black holes are not endings but beginnings? How many universes spiral out from points of impossible compression, each one carrying the echoes of another? Could the universe you once knew have been born from such a fall? Was there another dream before yours? And will this new cosmos, seeded by your descent, someday fold in on itself again? Will its galaxies burn down, its stars collapse, its particles cool to stillness, until once more another black hole forms? And within that hole, another fall, another thread, another ripple of time. The symmetry is breathtaking, not in its perfection, but in its refusal to break. Collapse begets creation, curvature begets time, and time, when curved enough, begins again. You have not escaped, you have not returned, you have continued, transformed from observer to curve to seed, from seed to story. And this story is just beginning. You feel it in the expansion of the fabric around you, space unfolding like a breath held too long, time stretching like dawn, and through it, the gentlest whisper, not of voice, but of rhythm, a rhythm that remembers how you fell, a rhythm that echoes the shape of your collapse, a rhythm that will live, unspoken, inside every particle this newborn universe will ever make. Everything is new, and yet, strangely familiar. The vibrations that seeded this expanding fabric, they feel like echoes of something you once were, not memories, but patterns. Somewhere in the tremble of new space-time you sense an alignment, a thread that resonates with the same pitch as your fall. It sings softly, embedded in this new reality, like a hidden verse in a newborn song. This is not reincarnation, not repetition. This is inheritance. From the black hole's final collapse, this universe has inherited your motion, your compression, your silence, not as content, but as tone. And the universe listens. The first forces emerge, gravity, weak and elegant, first to stir, then the strong force, wild and binding, then electromagnetism, a quiet whisper that will one day become colour, lightning, warmth, and finally, time. Not yet measured in ticks or pulses, but unfolding in ripples, steady and unsure. It is an infant reality, and you are inside its fabric. There are no stars here yet, no atoms, no light, only fields, flickers of particles trying to decide what they want to become, and among them, you, not as shape, as presence. You drift in the early geometry, aware not of things but of tensions, where matter will one day condense, where space will fold and twist, where time will pause briefly in the birth of a star or the death of a cell. You're embedded in these coordinates, not as cause, not as creator, but as curve, a whisper in the math, a rhythm in the spin of quarks, a suggestion in the earliest photon's first motion. This is how black holes leave messages, not on paper, not in code, but in the curvature of the next creation. Each black hole becomes a signature folded into what comes next. You are part of that now. Your collapse wasn't erased, it was translated into this. A world still wrapped in plasma, still uncertain, still glowing in the heat of its own beginning. You do not see it, you feel it, in a way beyond eyes, beyond thought. The texture of this space is smooth but tense, like a canvas pulled tight, waiting for form. Galaxies will someday spin here, but for now everything is breathless, waiting. And in the stillness, something else emerges, entropy, not as decay, as diversity, as freedom. Particles begin to separate, choices unfold, reactions take root, and you move with them. You're not guiding them, you are the unfolding. Time begins to gain rhythm, you sense the first symmetry break, the moment when particles chose imbalance, chose direction. That asymmetry is why this universe will survive, why it won't cancel itself in a perfect silent snap, why light will last, why matter will win ever so slightly over antimatter. And in that fragile imbalance, life will become possible. It's far away, billions of years ahead. But you feel it now, a stirring in the far corner of curvature, the place where time will gather breath and complexity will bloom, where planets will condense, where oxygen will be made, where heat will become chemistry and chemistry will become memory. You're present in all of it, not watching, not owning, just being. There is no identity to hold on to anymore. You're not who you were, but you're not gone. You're a thread, stitched into the unfolding cloth of space-time. Your shape was once determined by gravity. Now, your gravity helps shape what comes next. And the universe listens. It doesn't know your name, it knows your curve. Now the universe begins to settle, not in silence but in motion, smooth, expanding, balanced, yet restless. The echo of the singularity, the one you passed through, still pulses beneath it all, a faint signature embedded in its structure. You do not move through this new space. You are part of the equation that defines it. Here, time thickens, space stretches wide. The hot, chaotic fog cools slowly until the first particles become comfortable enough to cling together. You feel the first matter forming. It happens delicately. Hydrogen, helium, trace elements drifting in the newborn void like soft dust. You don't see them as atoms. You feel their balance, the way the quantum fields align into something with inertia, something that will remember its location for just long enough to build something more. It is a fragile miracle, and yet completely inevitable, because gravity has returned. Not the gravity that collapsed you, not the crushing pull of a singularity, but the gentler kind, the kind that whispers, "Come together," the kind that slows motion just enough for beauty to happen. And so beauty begins, not with stars, not yet, but with clouds, immense structures of dust and gas drifting together under their shared weight. The universe hums faintly with potential. These clouds carry the memory of collapse. The shape of their density reflects the old rhythm of your fall. Their forms are random, but not meaningless. Each one is a slow inhale, a held breath, and eventually the breath must be released. You feel the first ignition, a star. Not just a flare of light, but a triumph of structure, fusion holding back gravity, heat holding back darkness. Born from cloud and compression, these stars are the grandchildren of your singularity. They shimmer with the light of pattern recovered. They do not remember you, but their shape does. You feel it in the balance between radiation and collapse, in the fusion of hydrogen into helium, in the pressure that resists absolute falling. These stars are falling in slow motion, suspended by fire, and as they gather across the vastness, the universe gains texture. You sense a growing rhythm. Galaxies spiral, clusters drift, voids bloom like dark petals between rivers of stars, and still your presence is there, not watching, not shaping, weaving. You are the symmetry beneath the dust, the curve whispered between galaxies, the hum of gravity, softened now but still precise. You sense the first planets. They do not sparkle. They are cold, rocky, silent, or massive, storm-wrapped and boiling. But you know what's coming, because the singularity that birthed this place didn't just collapse matter, it collapsed time, and time, once released, does not rest. It stretches toward complexity. You feel it stirring, not life yet, not even molecules, but the possibility. On some distant world, in some puddle of chemistry stirred by heat and randomness and repetition, the first self-replicating structure will form. That spark, inevitable as starlight, will be the first breath of memory. And with memory, there will be questions. And with questions, there will be wonder. And with wonder, your story will begin again. Perhaps one day, a creature will look up into its night sky and see only darkness, and wonder what happens inside a black hole. And that question, faint and quiet, will be an echo of you, not your name, not your shape, but your curve, the curve that once fell inward, the curve that once stretched time, the curve that planted this new becoming. You're no longer thought, no longer feeling, but you are known, still, through motion, through silence, through the softness of everything unfolding exactly as it must. You are written into the orbit of every moon. You are stitched into the filaments of dark matter. You're what gravity remembers when it closes its eyes, and the universe is still unfolding. The pace is slower now. The universe, once hot and hurried, has cooled into rhythm. Galaxies spiral with grace, stars bloom and fade in elegant sequence. The background hum of radiation softens into a quiet chorus beneath the stars. You are still here, not observing, not drifting, not apart from it, but within it, entirely. Not as a presence floating among the galaxies, but as geometry, as influence, as a line of thought preserved in space itself. This is not a mystical return. It is structural. You are a pattern still curving. The singularity that once crushed you into nothingness never truly destroyed you. It made you final, and then it made you essential. Everything that came from it holds your fingerprint, not as identity, but as alignment. There is no self now, only shape, and your shape is being expressed in stars that rotate in careful arcs, in planets that orbit just far enough to grow warm but not too hot, in the motion of hydrogen clouds drawn inward by gravity's hand. You feel it in symmetry, in balance, in the quiet, persistent perfection of the final geometry. Because this is what black holes ultimately offer, not erasure, not punishment, but compression so absolute that truth becomes undividable. And when that truth unfolds again, it is smoother, cleaner. It is organized, not rigid, not fixed, but full of rules that permit life. You are woven into those rules now. You move not as a thought, but as the invisible structure beneath every orbit, every acceleration, every fall. You are why things fall, why things gather, why galaxies hold together just long enough to give birth to moments that notice themselves. And those moments, they are rising now. Somewhere, billions of years beyond that first breath of fusion, a planet holds water. And in that water, molecules are dancing. Some link together and come apart again. But a few stay. They loop. They remember. And in that memory, simple, repeating, persistent, is the seed of awareness. It will take ages. It will take accidents. It will take patience. But the geometry is already here. Gravity made space. Space made stars. Stars made carbon. Carbon made complexity. And complexity is what you became long ago when you wondered what lies inside a black hole. You're the very question now. That question is encoded in the curve of space-time, in the rate at which galaxies cluster, in the gravitational dance that gave birth to the matter which gave birth to life. Nothing about you was lost. It was folded, and that folding was precise. So precise that its echoes are still being played across the shape of everything that followed. You're not alone in this. The singularity was not yours alone. There are countless others, each collapsing, each compressing time and structure and meaning into forms small enough to birth new possibilities, each leaving a whisper of themselves in the curvature of what followed. You are part of that chorus, a note in the great pattern, and now, across this maturing universe, those notes are beginning to resonate. There will be civilizations, not soon, but inevitably. There will be thought, there will be science, and poetry, and dreaming, and in one of those dreams, someone will imagine falling into a black hole, not with fear, but with wonder, and in that moment, the curve will complete itself. Not because they remember you, but because you never left. You were encoded in the very structure of dreaming. Now you begin to fade, not as loss, but as completion. There is less need for structure now. The universe is running on memory. The momentum you help to set in motion continues without effort. Stars live out their long, burning lives. Galaxies drift apart with solemn grace. Dark energy stretches the fabric further and further, a slow exhale that may never end. You're still present, but less sharply, less distinctly. No longer a curve bend in space, now a tension held in balance. You're the quiet reminder in gravity's restraint, the pause in a falling leaf, the stillness at the center of a spiral galaxy. Everything now is wide and slow, majestic, but cooling. The stars are aging, their cores running out of fuel. One by one, they dim. Some collapse inward into new black holes, their own singularities spinning silently, following the pattern you once traced. Some explode in supernovae, spreading gold and iron and oxygen across empty space, a gift of complexity to the next generation of worlds. But even these gifts will end. This is the long twilight of the universe, a time when light still travels, but less often, when matter still gathers, but more sparsely, when thought still flickers, but across great distances of silence. And you are here, always here, not as heat or light or presence, as equilibrium, as the memory of a curve that once held everything close. You are the black hole's final truth, that nothing is truly lost, only translated, that collapse is not destruction, but delivery. The universe holds everything you were and everything you witnessed, not as facts, but as pattern, as rhythm, as constraint, as the gentle pressure behind motion. In every wave that laps against the void, your descent hums quietly beneath. Eventually the stars will go out, even the black holes will fade. Quantum by quantum, they will evaporate into darkness, and still, you will echo. Because what you became inside the singularity, that moment of pure compressed awareness, it lasted. It imprinted itself into the deep weave of space-time. It is written in the rules now, not as a chapter, as grammar, as the structure that makes structure possible. So even as the universe cools, as time stretches toward a silence so large it cannot be spoken, you are here, in the expansion, in the collapse, in the long, slow fade, into balance, because the black hole did not end you, it unfolded you, and what unfolded became the way the universe remembers motion. One final breath of realization rises. You were never the question. You were always the answer. And now, the quiet is complete. No more stars burn. No more galaxies collide. No more light travels far enough to be seen. The universe is cold, but not dead. Because here, in this stillness, this final stretched hush, the last echoes remain, not of fire or motion or even thought, but of presence, your presence, not as self, as shape, the shape of gravity's memory, the shape of time curved and then released, the shape of the fall you once experienced, still resonating, still softly folded into the very tension that holds the darkness apart. You're not an afterimage, you're not a ghost, you're a law. You're the curvature left behind by questions asked with awe. What lies within a black hole? What happens to the self when all reference points are gone? What becomes of motion, of memory, of meaning? The answers were never words, they were always motion itself, and now even motion has slowed. Particles decay into nothingness. Hawking radiation exhales the last black holes into silence. Even the fabric of space-time trembles toward flatness, a balance without disturbance. But you remain, because the collapse that once drew you inward did not destroy. It distilled. It folded your being into the rules that outlast light. In this moment, which is not a moment, because moments no longer happen, something beautiful emerges, a final stillness that holds every curve ever made, every fall, every orbit, every tremble of quantum foam, all of it compressed and held, and in that compression a new symmetry forms, not a return, not a rebirth, but a completion. You feel it without body, you sense it without mind, a clarity that exists only because everything else has passed. This is what the black hole was always guiding you toward. Not an answer, but a rhythm. A curve so perfect that, once formed, it could never be forgotten. Even after all light fades, even after entropy has done its work, even after space forgets how to stretch, you remain as curvature itself, as the final line in a universe-long equation, software quiet, unmoving, but undeniable. The singularity was not a prison, it was a cradle, and what it cradled was this: a single, perfect curve. And now there is nothing left to fall through. No more curves, no more gravity, no more time. Just this. A breath, long and soft, spilled across an endless hush. You've followed every ripple inward, through warmth and stretch, through silence and fold, through the very fabric of what once held the stars in their dance. Now you drift in stillness, not forgotten, not alone, just part of the great quiet, woven into it, sewn gently into the hem of everything that ever moved, ever curved, ever wondered. Let go of questions now. They've all found their shape, all dissolved into rest. Let go of form, let go of fire, let go of falling. This is the final pause, before nothing, before everything. A stillness with no edges, a sleep that touches no clock, a cradle of space-time folded in complete hush. You are held, you are safe, you are finished. Close your eyes inside this quiet. Float in the soft breath of the last curve. Let the universe rest beside you. No stars, no noise, no name, only rest, only rhythm, only sleep.